Namaste. Welcome to the Happy Jack Yoga Podcast. I'm Happy Jack, live from Harvard Innovation Labs here in Boston, Massachusetts. And I'm live with Coco and
Bihanna, and I am in Bracebridge, Ontario, Canada. Good to be
beautiful.
here.
Very, very beautiful to be here. We just finished a beautiful satsang call for the Bhakti Yoga Conference. Many of you were on that. Some of you are still lingering, listening in, or maybe you stepped away from your phone. But anyways, you're still logged in, and we're happy to have you here with us. This is a time we come together every week to be in community, to be in dialogue, to talk yoga, to talk bhakti, to talk spirituality, whatever is on our heart. And a lot of amazing things happening. Graduation this month, a few weeks away until I graduate and completely done here at Harvard and on to the next chapter. And then of course next month, Hannah, we're going to be together in West Virginia for a retreat, our annual summer retreat. Some of the yogis who are here are going to be there with us. But let's just see before I get going, because I got a few things on my heart that I'm excited to reveal. What is on your heart? What would you love to share?
Well, I don't know. You caught me off guard. Happy to be here. Happy to see the Bhakti wave keep, another wave of Bhakti in our community as we go through the recordings, I think, from the actual conference. So now we will organize it on our course platform in a way that everyone can go through the content and maybe listen to some of the lectures they might have missed, or if you haven't listened to any, then maybe now would be a time where you select to choose to go through some of the lectures that were recorded during our Bhakti Yoga conference.
Yeah. There's so much there. It's such a great resource. And even if we've gone through it, there are certain sessions that I'm really excited to go back to. And, so what I wanted to share, I started sharing about this on our Sunday satsang call. Some of you were there. Hannah, you knew about this because, we're in communication regularly. But so something happened last week, after this, there's all this beautiful, as you said, wave of bhakti and community coming together and just like being on this beautiful journey together. And then I got an email out of the blue, and it was an email letting me know that the grade I'm receiving for this project is an A-. And I like totally caught me off guard. I think because so many people, so many of the speakers and participants and members of the community are like, oh, you're going to get 1,000%, you're going to get AAA, so much talk like that because we were all enjoying co-creating this. And then all of a sudden when I got the grade and it was not the highest possible, I was like, oh, I was devastated. I was disappointed. And in that moment, I noticed emotions coming up. There was a moment, there was disappointment, but then it actually shifted to anger. I wasn't particularly proud of that, but there was like anger and frustration and all of this showing up over, truthfully, a silly grade, which is not going to have any impact on the rest of my life. And all of this came up, but having spent some time and reflecting on it and thinking about it, I was able to recognize, during this past 2 months of the Bhakti Yoga Conference, my daily practices had started to dwindle. I'm kind of doing the bare minimum, but my attentiveness, the quality of my practice has just not been so solid. And so recognizing that, just kind of seeing the correlation, right? When I've done this before, when I push myself too hard and kind of do too much and not have self-care, it's easy to kind of lose that. It's easy to not be my best self, truthfully. And so, I'm able to see it as a gift. It really is a gift, because since then I made a decision. I drew a line in the sand and I said, I'm getting back on track. And since that day, my daily practices, my japa meditation, my mantra meditation, my just like listening to lectures and like being back on track and it's so nourishing. So I feel like it was such a good reminder. Although for 24 hours, and you saw it, Hanna, I was frustrated and I was disappointed. I can see it now as a gift, because if I didn't get that A minus, I might have just kind of kept going, like, oh yeah, life is good, and just kept going with my mediocre practices. Versus now I've got it like dialed back in, and it's like, why did I ever, it's so good. It's like, it feels so good, getting up early, going to the Mangala Arti, singing, dancing, chanting, going out for long walks in the morning, chanting mantra, on my downtime, listening to lectures from Radhanath Swami. It feeds me. So it's a gift.
Yeah, and it makes me think of two things. One, you said a silly grade. It's not really silly because it shows something about, like, it's oftentimes we talk about like the stories we make things mean something. For you in that moment, it was almost like a trauma trigger where
Mm,
I think it poked something in you, and correct me if I'm wrong, but like something around self-worth, or you know the
yeah.
idea of like you, like it was signaling something to you about how you did or didn't do, maybe that was triggered because of the little sign after the A, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it was definitely a trauma response. It was, and you're right. I mean, what I mean by when I say silly grade, in the sense that, I've taken 24 classes here at Harvard, and 2/3 of them have been A's, and 1/3 of them have been A minus. And really, it doesn't. I'm not attached to the grades, whether it's an A, whether it's an A minus. It really didn't matter. But I think in this case, because I put so much effort, like I sacrificed my health. I got sick by the time the grand finale. I sacrificed other classes, and like I've never given so much of myself to anything in my whole life. And so, there was a lot of effort. So definitely it was an A in effort. Definitely, it seems like it was an A in impact, right? With like the impact it's had on people. But I got some feedback from the people who were evaluating, and for whatever reason they gave the A minus. And you're right, though, it was an emotional response. It had to do with self-worth. I mean, that's been a story for me, right? Like trying to, since I can remember as a kid, like trying to prove that I'm enough, prove that I'm worthy, and so it brought it out.
Yeah, yeah, that's why I mean it's not silly, because it is something important for you to know about yourself, and then it gives you the opportunity to acknowledge that. And like you said, in another challenging time, almost like, I don't know that the word purification is the right word, but it's an opportunity mm, to revisit old patterns and try to make something righter, so that it isn't, almost like there's a wound and you get to now take care of it instead of having it reactivate. Maybe it can heal when it's had some attention. And that comes from, what I'm hearing you say, comes from your spiritual practice.
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess yeah, I mean, it wasn't the worst thing in the world, but I'm not particularly proud of the way that I reacted, and the level of attachment that I had, because, for example, at the grand finale with Radhanath Swami, we were able to, actually, I didn't observe, but there was a student from Harvard, and actually he was on the last call, the satsang. I won't mention his name, but he went up to Radhanath Swami after the session, and he started telling Radhanath Swami all of the things that he could have said. Oh, hey, that was great. You could have said this, or you should have said this, or like, I mean, this is a PhD scholar, smart guy, and kind of saying that, and maybe this, we can talk about sensory acuity, but anyways, he kind of said all these things, and Radhanath Swami, just with like the biggest smile and openness and love, it was just, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts, and then was it after like genuinely receiving them and considering them, and then was kind of playful and said, you please be my guru, please be my teacher, but not doing it in a condescending way, like in a playful way, like, thank you. And so I'm thinking about myself, whether it's you, Hanna, or other people in my life, like when people tell me what I could do or should do, it's easy to get a little bit defensive of like, well, hey, this is why I did this is why I did that. And so I thought that was a great example of the way that Radhanath Swami, there's no defensiveness, there was no ego, whether the scholar was right or wrong, indifferent, but now this scholar, he left there and he's just like, wow, like I feel like he really listened to me and he really heard me and he really respected me. And so he walked away having such a beautiful experience, versus if there had been defensiveness and then, one person's saying what they think, another person defensive, and then, well, how does that leave us? So I guess that was like and I'm not at that level, obviously, but I feel like that was just a great example of how I aspire to be able to handle those circumstances.
Yeah, what I hear in that is the quality of his listening is elevated, right? Radhanath Swami was just listening. He would put his ego to the side and just listen to that person, because there's probably a reality where his suggestions would be great, whether it's appropriate or not to tell of someone who's been a monk for 50 years and talking to people for 50 years, like, typically we don't coach our elders like that, but I'm sure there's always going to be people who will have some advice to offer and such. But the way that Swamiji was able to be present and just listen and receive him, like you said, probably elevated a lot in that individual's life and gave that individual a sense of belonging and being heard, which is what most of us secretly long for. Just the quality of someone's attention and presence. And it makes me think about the way we are present with each other. If there is an agenda, or is there like a pure sense of clean, focused, open attention, attunement, listening? Like, we're not trained in that in any other, unless you go to, I guess, a psychotherapy training or listen to spiritual teachings and are willing to implement them and actually apply them. Then our presence changes, how we receive each other, how we hold each other without an agenda, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I think, we were in a sense taught the opposite, and no disrespect to my teachers or family or anything like that. But it's like, I think that I was taught to be defensive and taught to be proud and taught to stand up for and there's of course a time to stand up for ourselves. But this is like these principles, these bhakti principles are quite radical, extraordinary in a sense, right? To be tolerant, to be more tolerant than a tree. Think about a tree, how tolerant a tree is, right? Like winter, summer, hail, snow, that doesn't rain. It's just out there tolerating, right? Or being more humble than a blade of grass, just getting stepped on every day and just bounces back, no disrespect. And so that kind of cultivating these qualities is inspiring. And I guess I was just noticing, like, well, there's so many things. Obviously, I and most of us are not at the level of a Swami, but I was noticing that because I was working so hard, frankly, for the conference and all the other responsibilities, and I was neglecting a little bit my spiritual practices and some of my self-care practices, it had an impact. And I wasn't my best self. And I think that I got more angry and more disappointed and more reactive than I would have even 2 months ago, right? Like, I'm not talking 10 years ago. I'm just even talking right before the conference. So that was a good wake-up call. And, anybody who knows me, you know me well, Hanna, I do things fully. I take massive action. And so I talked about it on Sunday, and I've officially done it. Sarah, George, Andrea, Rita, others who were there. I have completely deleted every distractive app from my phone. The most entertaining thing on my phone right now is I toggle between either calculator or the weather. Those are like kind of the most entertaining things on my phone. And I love it. Well, first of all, when I was like hitting that delete button on my Gmail inbox, I was like, oh, is this irresponsible? Can I really do this? And then heck yeah, I did it. And to have like Internet Explorer, like there's no internet on my phone, there's no email, there's no nothing like that. But hey, I mean, it's not irresponsible because 7 days a week, I'm on my laptop here, for a period of time doing work and responding to things. But I feel like I don't need to check it when I'm riding the subway or I'm taking a bathroom break or I'm whatever, many times a day. And by the way, again, I said on Sunday and I say again, I'm not here preaching and saying everybody else needs to do what I'm doing. But I did give the analogy of like, think about an alcoholic. Let's say if one of us amongst here were an alcoholic. And if that person who has like a really, challenge with, their addiction with alcohol, and if they said, you know what, friends, I'm going to remove all of the alcohol from my house. I'm pretty sure all of us would be like, that's a great idea. Like that will really serve you, and it doesn't mean we all have to do it, but you have this relationship. I think that's a really good idea. And although it's not the same as, alcohol, for me, and we can only evaluate ourselves, I'm just not pleased with the amount of times I reach for my phone, like dopamine hit, check messages, check emails. And so again, this is just, I'm not here to preach. I'm not here to tell anyone else to do, but I'll tell you what, it's only been 2 days now. And it's like amazing. It's like, it's so good. It's so freeing. And guess what? When I come in here and at 8:30 in the morning, when I open up my laptop and there's my emails and there's my WhatsApp, and I just jump right back into it. But then I'm off, after 5:30 p.m. I know you're not surprised to hear this extreme action, Hanna, but what do you think?
I think it sounds like freedom to you,
Oh, yeah.
right? But one thing I wanted to say about, like, again, bringing it back to our way of being present and listening. Like, if we were to say that Radhanath Swami's presence is something to aspire for, then I think that cultivating that kind of listening might be a good idea. Trying to be more heart-centered so that our presence would kind of, I guess, somehow evolve, right? And how we are with each other and how you're able to listen to yourself. So that brings me back to your response to the grade, that if you notice that this is triggering for me because I feel like I'm being evaluated wrongly because I gave my heart and soul to this, and it felt like, I guess, like a criticism or something. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm just kind of hypothesizing, saying words that you might say, but I don't know if it's true, right? And then if you can hold that and listen to yourself and notice that this is painful for me, this doesn't feel right. And just the fact that you're willing to be with yourself through that experience is healing.
Yeah.
And in this way, if you can do it for yourself, then we can maybe try to do it for others as well. And some might call this compassion, some might call it spiritually evolving, where we are able to stay in difficult or painful places, triggering places with each other without an agenda, without coming with advice or coaching, but just really receive it and be with that. That in itself changes the energy, just like Radhanath Swami did with that student who was coaching him.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, yeah. And I guess I 100% agree. And I guess I find it's easier for me to be in that reflection, to be in that space of, really thinking about it when I'm not distracted by other things. And so like it's actually amazing. I go to the Widener Library, the big library on campus every day after lunch. I got a routine. I go there every day. And leaving there yesterday for the first time without like, having any apps on my phone, I'm like, wow, look at the marble there. And look at that tile. Look at that. Whoa, look at that big special glass, whatever they call it, stained glass. So many things I'm noticing. And it's not that I walk around on my phone necessarily, but I just somehow I'm finding myself more present. And then also, as Sarah said on the previous satsang call, she was saying she heard a lecture from Radhanath Swami, and he just said one sentence, something like, "What's the rush?" And that was like exactly what she needed to hear at that moment, and that like, really just gave some peace for her. And I felt that as well. Like after this emotional response I had, when I'm doing my yoga asana in the morning, I'm listening to Radhanath Swami lectures, and he just happened to be doing a lecture on anger. Okay, I searched it out. I found a lecture on anger, and it's like, oh man, if I had heard that in the moment, or if I was in that consciousness at the time I got the grade, I would have like immediately, or at least a lot quicker, smiled and realized like everything is okay. So I totally receive what you're saying about like being in the reflection, and it seems that cultivating a space that nourishes that and makes it easier. Yeah, it's really helps to just have more space for that.
Yeah, it sounds like it helps you to be more present to
Mm,
the magic that is in the world. That's the whole point, I think, of being embodied in a human body, having the experience, what is right here in this moment when you notice the beauty of the building you're in, or the type of sunlight, or the eyes of the person you're talking with. The way we are present changes when we open ourselves to the present moment.
yeah,
Because
yeah.
it's easy to use spirituality as a self-blaming mechanism as well. I should be living in a temple. I should be doing this and that. It can be just another rat race
Mm,
if you choose to apply it in that way. If you don't notice your previous programming, then like I hear you saying like people are at different levels. I don't know that I love that analogy, because it's not, people are not organized into categories of
mm,
advancement, even though we'd like to have it that way. And some people have more experience than others, but it's not, in my mind, I think we would probably um, do better if we were able to do what you're talking about here, like our way of being present, and
mm.
our quality of our listening, both towards ourselves and others.
Yeah, yeah. No, I love that, and I feel like it is important what we consume.
Yeah.
And I found that's, I wish I tried actually for the last year, like since finding Bhakti Yoga, I wish that like when I opened up my social media, it was just like Bhakti and high vibes, but somehow like the algorithm knows the things that suck me in, whether that's Toronto Maple Leafs hockey, whether that's Bon Jovi or Paul McCartney. And not that these are inherently bad or negative things at all, but they're distractions. And for example, like the hockey, right? I actually can't wait to the Leafs played last night. I can't wait till this ends so I can actually go see if they won or not. I but at least I'm doing it like during work hours, not at bad times. But just even having my consciousness in that, it's like, oh, hey, did we win? Did we beat Florida? It's, you know what I mean? There's like, again, not saying sports is bad, like there's goodness in it. I enjoy playing hockey. But if I'm spending too much time in that culture, or like, looking at rock stars, ooh, Paul McCartney, or like, oh, I hope Canada beat the US in this thing. If I spend too much time in that heart space, I notice I don't become my best self. So although I do have a need to check the score after this podcast, I do need to know. But then it's like, okay, that's done. And I just love listening to lectures. And the other thing I noticed with my reading, I read every evening before going to bed, some bhakti spiritual book. And I've just been reading more pages, like way more pages these last couple of nights, because I don't know, maybe you guys can relate. You just like, oh, just one last time, I'm just going to check emails, just checking things and quick, and just get distracted for 5 or 10 minutes. And then I don't know, but for whatever reason, I'm reading more, I'm happier, I'm less angry. And I know it's just 2 days, and I know that there's going to be things that are going to set me off, and I'm gonna go up and down as life does for us. But it seems to be working, and I'm happy to be back.
Welcome back.
I'm back. Yeah.
No, I'm kidding. I understand. And it's obviously something that in our world, many of us need to pay attention to, how we spend our time and what kind of environments do we, choose to spend our time in. Right. And so if it's not nourishing and if it just brings anxiety, I think that's the right thing to do. Who said that we need to be available 24/7 and read emails? But then we also have to accept the fact that sometimes some emails, it's going to take some time before they get an answer. And, finding that balance is not a problem for you, but
Yeah. I mean, I think the next day is realistic.
yeah.
And anyways, yeah, but this thing, I mean, there was a time, like, I don't know, what was the year, late 90s, when the internet really started going. Like now we just have like the internet in our pocket, and it's so convenient. Like the couple things I kept, I kept the Uber app because sometimes I need the Uber app, and then other than that, like maps and camera and a guitar tuner, calculator, and voice memos, just a few little things like that. But yeah, I think
the
that
app where you listen to lectures?
that's the best. That's a good question. It's not on my phone. So a friend here at the ashram, he made this little recorder. It's amazing. I got to get you one, Sarah. I'll figure out how to get you one. Just because you're like into bhakti big time, and Radhanath Swami. So one of the devotees at the ashram, he made these recorders. He brought them from India. So he brought like 50 recorders, and then 50 memory cards, and then 50 of these. And basically he installs them. And so it's like every lecture that Radhanath Swami has ever given, and every Prabhupada book, an audio book of like everything from Bhagavatam to Bhagavad Gita to, on and on. It's just like, it's a lifetime of wisdom. And it's just on this little recording device, and you can put earphones as well. So he gifted one to like everybody here at the ashram. And so I love that. So as soon as I wake up in the morning, as I'm brushing my teeth and getting changed and drinking my lemon water, I'm just listening to my recorder on a particular, and then, there's no temptation to, because that was part of the challenge before, right? Like I'd have to open my phone to use Spotify for something, but then you see the notifications, or even if you turn the notifications off, it's tempting to push. And it's just understanding our nature. I'm sure there's some of you out there that have a healthy relationship with your phone, and I have all my respect and namahas to you. And I know my nature, and it's like Hun, it's like why I don't buy peanut butter, right? If I buy peanut butter, I mean, and again, it's not the worst thing in the world, but I tend to, you could say, overindulge a little bit. And so I don't buy it. And that's the same. But also, all jokes aside, as this chapter comes to a completion here at Harvard, right? This week, final papers, final exams. By next podcast, it's all done. I still have a few papers and exams. Yeah. But I'm I'm feeling like, as we've talked about on many of our community calls, like inspired, like what's next? What are we creating? How are we, what's the next step for Happy Jack Yoga and all of our different seva and offerings? And there's like many great ideas, but I feel like I'm so full. I'm just like so, my brain, everything is just so like to the brim of good stuff, but just full, that like I'm really looking forward to taking some weeks here in the month of May to just like decompress and empty out, because then I know that that's where clarity will come from. And then whatever is next, whatever Hanna, you and I decide to do together, it's going to come like with energy and inspiration and clarity and focus and let's do this. So that's also part of the reason to create that space.
Yeah, that sounds good. Some space for silence, right? It sounds like everything's so busy and full already. If we want to create something new, we need to create some space for it.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's the plan. So, stay tuned on that. And then the other fun thing is that we're going to be shifting, having been student for the past few years. And of course, we keep running Happy Jack Yoga Online. So beautiful to have our community here, but also getting back into retreats. Like, how fun is that? 1 month from today, today's May 6th, on June the 6th, many of us are going to be coming together in West Virginia, Mountain Mama, that song. We're coming together in West Virginia for our summer retreat, and just to be in nature and in community and in the yoga shala. It's going to be like a hybrid of, we're doing our Happy Jack Yoga community, high vibes, different practices, but we also happen to be in a bhakti community, so we can be exposed to the kirtan, the prasadam, the food, the different spiritual practices, and just being, and we had a call with the group who's coming to that retreat on the weekend. Everybody's looking for, like, nobody's looking for like light me up, energize me. It's more like everybody's like, I need some downtime. I need some rest, some relaxation. I think it's probably just part of the culture these days, just kind of craving some serenity.
Yeah, everyone's craving for silence and nature and space to breathe, right?
Yeah. So that's going to be the plan, and so beautiful to bring people together for that. And then of course later this year is the epic adventure back to Mother India. Many on this call are coming for that adventure. And the same thing, like just being able to, as the bhakti culture teaches us, right? There's the importance of our sadhana, right? Having our kind of consistent daily practices that we do in the morning, even something in the evening to kind of close out the day. But then the association, that's where we get to meet here in Zoom regularly, to be with good people. And then the svadhyaya, or the scriptures, like our reading, whether that's listening to lectures, listening to podcasts, reading the texts. And then a very important element of the practice is traveling to holy places. And what makes, do you know this one, Hanna? What makes them holy? What makes Rishikesh holy? What makes Vrindavan holy? What makes, name the place in Italy, I should know this, that's like holy, like the Vatican. What makes those places holy?
I don't know. You tell me.
The people. The people, right? It is. I mean, it's a holy place because that's where, let's talk about Rishikesh, for example, or Vrindavan, or the Govardhan Eco Village where we go, which is a replica of Vrindavan. What makes it holy is the people, the sadhu sangha, the association of great souls who come together. And so that's a beautiful thing, to be able to be with good people, having meaningful conversation, as you say, taking the time to reflect on life, reminding ourselves, as Sarah said, it's like, what's the rush? Because Sarah and George right now, you got teenagers, and I'll tell you, it was a moment ago that I met Hanna and she had teenagers, and now her kids are like adults gone, and she's like missing them. Why won't you come home? But in a moment, it's going to go by like that.
Yeah, my
No rush.
oldest turns 24 this year. It's like,
Yeah.
I cannot believe it.
Yeah. Yeah. He was just a little boy, way smaller than me. And now he's like so tall and he's a man.
Mhm.
And it happens just like that.
Yeah.
So what do you think? What is on your heart as you look forward, Hanna? You're sitting here in beautiful Muskoka. You're knitting. You've got your trusty dog, watchdog, Coco beside you. What is on your heart?
What is on my heart is actually, I don't know how to, like, I don't have the religious framework for my spiritual life the way you do, although it 100% resonates with how I live and what I believe.
Mm,
I just don't engage in organized religion in that way, or in organized spirituality.
yeah.
For me, it's more of you know, the way I breathe, or the way like almost like cultivating um I'm recently I've been wanting to cultivate a quiet place inside my heart. And I guess that's what we hear in the participants who are coming to the yoga retreat in a month, that there's a need, maybe it's collective, of silence and a presence of the heart.
Mm,
and and that's my way of praying, my way of wanting to connect with the world, not isolate myself from the world, kind of like you were saying, that you now notice how beautiful the world is. So
mm,
to me, that's a way of being present. So I feel like we're talking about the same thing, just in from different frameworks, or maybe just how we do it, or the words we might use, or you know and that happens a lot. That's why we're together here, because it happens a lot through yoga, whatever type of yoga it is that you choose to, or that your system kind of responds to. Like, you can have a really good meditation after a yoga class, or in yoga class you can feel like your presence is being mm, I don't know, refined, or like almost like our body and our mind and our soul is an antenna that um that we can use, that we can interact with, that we can refine. When there's a problem in the antenna, we get an A minus, then the receiving isn't as clear, the channel isn't as clear, and it's painful to be in this body, for example. So
yeah. Yeah, I
yeah.
love that. I love that. That's one of the things we really value and cultivate in this community, is that we all find our own path. We find our, well, of course I deleted it. I don't have the app on my phone anymore, but I messaged with our friend Mars yesterday, because I'm just going to pull it up quick. I thought it was really beautiful what he had wrote. Let me just read this for you. Yeah, because he was yeah, check this out. So this is what he wrote. So he didn't write this to me. He'd written this a few years ago. Somebody was asking him about his path, and he said, "I was born in a Baha'i family, pursued love of Jesus in my youth, joined the Hare Krishnas for almost 2 decades in the 60s, 70s, 80s, followed the Fourth Way and Circassian Kebza and Sufis for almost 2 more decades." And then the key line, "never doubting that there is one truth and one light only." And it kind of went on from there as well. But I love that we can recognize, there are, we find different paths and different avenues. And for many of us here in this community, yoga asana was an entrance point, and that was like our the opening to spirituality. And I know some in this community have now like kind of discovered bhakti, and hey, this feels really good, and I'm going to practice it. And others, I love our Christian community, or who are, when Cece says that this bhakti is making me a better Christian. It's making me, it's helping me to love and have more appreciation for Jesus. And I think that's important for each of us to honor that and to respect that and to find. And again, we have different natures. Sarah and I were joking earlier. The British word nutter. You're a nutter, and we're just like all in, like kind of just like, I don't know how to just exactly what nutter means. Maybe put it in the chat exactly what it means. But for me, it's like having like a system and structure and like a program to follow and live by, I find very helpful. It kind of gives me direction, and then to be able to have texts that share stories about it, right? Not saying you must do this, but are sharing stories about these different people who, the way they live their lives and then how they navigate challenges in life. And it's just like so nourishing, like eating my breakfast this morning, and I'm just like, there's a whole library there. That's a cool thing living at the ashram. There's just like a library of all these amazing books. Just grab a different one each day while I'm eating breakfast. And it's just like so nourishing. It feels right. And I think that's the important thing. If each of us, what we're doing, it feels right. And and I've heard devotees of 50 years, devotees for half a century now, and say, I found this practice, the bhakti yoga, and it feels right. And if I ever find something that feels more right, if it feels more right, I'm gonna walk that direction. And so I think that's like healthy, right? Versus just like being now like, nope, this is it. This is the only way. This is my way. So it's like that balance of there's value in bringing discipline and consistency and commitment. I notice that anyways in my practice, but also kind of being open that, hey, there's many paths, and I think that's a nice, healthy approach.
Yeah, if it's nourishing, if it feels like it makes more space, more clarity, more emotional availability, the way we meet each other, the way we meet ourselves, if that path is helping us, because we do know that the nature of life is that it can be kind of ruthless. It can be throwing challenges our way. Like in my case, I did not find spirituality through yoga, but it helped me in my spirituality. The way I found spirituality is that my husband died, and then I saw his body and I understood. And I know this is a radical statement. A lot of people find it odd or difficult because they didn't have to make those thoughts yet. But for me, the experience was that he's not here anymore. His soul is somewhere else. So to me, that means that there is more than what meets the eye here. So I launched myself into exploring what it means. And today, when I read yogic philosophy and wisdom from that tradition, and it explains to us in the ways in which consciousness survives, that we have a soul, and that we are not trapped in these difficulties of life, but that there is many layers to our existence, then that to me brings a sense of feeling like I'm not a victim, and that I can interact with the world, that there is space for our spiritual evolution, and that it's a wisdom tradition that we can use in the ways that you were describing earlier, where it's nourishing, where it feels like it's deepening my life experience, that it makes, it makes life more nourishing, more interesting. There's
Mm.
something in there for us um, that evolves us, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's beautiful when you can have that perspective, right? Because that's like one of the hardest things, other than, perhaps losing a child is maybe the hardest, but losing your partner, your husband, suddenly, right? You're 31 years of age. One of the hardest things that a person can go through, and it was, and it still continues to be, but to be able to find the meaning, to be able to see, like, you wouldn't wish it upon anybody, you wouldn't want it to happen again, but to have something meaningful come from it, and launch you on this spiritual path, to asking questions, and having just like total different appreciation and respect and gratitude for old age. Some people are like trying to stay young, getting Botox and plastic surgery and all this kind of stuff. And I know you, like, you never wear, I've known you for over 10 years. I've never seen you wear makeup, like nothing, zero. And you're not trying to, like, you like embrace aging, and you see it as such a gift, because your first husband didn't have that opportunity. And so that it's like all these gifts came from the worst thing in the world. It's beautiful that you can see it that way.
Yeah, I think, you know, in a way, when difficult things happen to us, like the one when you're describing the frustration of not being evaluated right at Harvard and getting A minus, the way we come to that is almost karmic, or it is based on our previous patterning. When a conflict or a problem arises, the way we meet it is determined by who we are, how our imprints are, right? Personality or whatever, all of the different factors. And sometimes we're lucky when the difficult things come that we respond in a way that makes us survive better. And I'm not saying that losing or having conflict in our life is ever going to be super easy, because then I think we would be bypassing. We wouldn't give it the right attention it needs, because there's always uh, kind of like a pulsation towards some kind of learning, some kind of evolution. And if we just say like, oh, nothing touches me, we would be bypassing the gifts of what we are experiencing. So what I'm saying is that it's the things that we experience that are challenging to us, that is always going to be challenging to us. But how we navigate the challenge, with what depth, with what resources. Today, we know, as we age and mature, we know that there's tools. When difficult things come, we can ask for guidance. We can look to spirituality. We can look to spiritual people in our lives, or elders that we look to. They don't have to be spiritual if it doesn't resonate, that it needs to be. And what is spiritual? To me, spiritual and life, there's no difference. It's all the same thing. It's not like I have a spiritual practice and then I have a life practice. It's all together, right? And so because we do know that challenges are the nature of life. That's why there is duality. That's why we did choose to come into this world as babies and now live in this body. Then how we kind of walk each other home and ourselves home in that experience, how we can find clarity, how we can find a consolence. Is that a word? Consolence, a sense
Yeah.
of comfort, being consoled by something that is bigger than us and holds us, even if we're in a crisis. That I think is, um, to me, fascinating, and that I hold on to when I'm challenged in my everyday life by little things. I hold on to my experience, my breath, my sense of expansion and feeling safe, even if it's rocky. That's the definition of trauma. Trauma means we don't feel safe. We feel threatened and we shrink. And our practice makes us relax into what's happening and knowing that we are safe in navigating also this challenge.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, I appreciate all that you share and just that last bit about trauma and how we respond to it. Like I don't know if this is trauma, help me if it is or not, but like I just have a lot to do always. And so I was laying in bed this morning and of course, I wake up and I drink my water and I attempt to focus on some things that I'm grateful for, but easily my mind wants to think about, I got 2 papers to write this week and I'm not thrilled about that. And so I had this thought. I'm like, okay, Jack, I counted the days. In 5 days, I'm going to be done all of my schoolwork, right? Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Saturday night, everything's handed in. So I just got to get through 5 more days. But then I thought, okay, so once all of that schoolwork is done, there's still a lot to do. There's a lot to do with Happy Jack Yoga. There's a lot to do with and so I was like, oh man. So even as soon as these 5 days are done, there is going to be more things that cause me to wake up and, I'm trying to focus on the gratitude. But I'm like, we got a 200 hours starting. We got a retreat starting. These are all good things. Everything is good. We're blessed in that sense, but it's just there's just responsibility. There's something about responsibility and demanding, and probably I just need a break. So I'm going to take some downtime this month, a couple different points. But there is, I noticed there was a response of kind of waking up and just my nervous system launches into oh, we haven't done this yet. Oh, I haven't done that yet. And it's not ideal.
Yeah. And it's great that you notice that. There's always going to be 5 more days. There's always going to be 5 more days. And so that's where the shift needs to happen here and right now, in this moment, in this present moment. Because if I'm not willing to be present to this moment, how am I going to be present 5 days from now? That's why yogis teach a lot about clearing our space, seeking to be here now in this breath and evolve from here, so that when I meet the next 5 days, I'll meet them with the same energy as Radhanath Swami, with softness and gentleness and kindness. And it's not like he hasn't accomplished anything. He's accomplished a lot. If we are to look at it from our rational, thinking mind, because that's often the thing that we fear then. So I wonder if the overwhelm is also a stress response, meaning we've been culturally kind of coached and trained and whipped into this shape where we feel like our value is tied together with how much we get accomplished, and it has to happen now. And then that kind of becomes the rat race and the mantra of our nervous system. It's not even conscious, where we feel like we have to constantly produce, because otherwise we're not safe. The future will not be safe unless I do this, and this. And then we are not noticing that, whoopsies, 10 years went by. Kids are 22 and 24. Whoopsies. I'm on my deathbed. Whoopsies.
Yeah. And it's interesting. Again, we bring up Radhanath Swami again. He's accomplished so much, not because of his physical strength, not the size of his muscles, right? Not because of his academic scholarly intellect, not because that kind of stuff that maybe we seek, but actually because of his softness, his humility, his tolerance, his way of being. This is what has attracted people towards him, and that's why he's opened a hospital and opened a feeding millions of people, and has the eco village and has a center in New York and all these different projects. He's not out there laying the bricks himself. Maybe he did the first one, I don't know, but he's because of he's just purely living these bhakti principles, and then that attracts people. They want to be a part of that. They want to help create spaces where others can experience that and learn about that. So that's great, you know. So again, Sarah and I, who are nutter, you know, we it serves, you know, it's gotten us this far. We've done well in life, but you know, I think also being able to cultivate some of this surrender, this patience.
Yeah, and the
This
price
softness.
of having done well in the life. I think Radhanath Swami seems to pay a different price than a lot of us other people. The price of, like you often say, like, yeah, I work really hard, but look what I've accomplished. Like, do you think I could have built Happy Jack Yoga if I wasn't in this way? And I would say that's just one way of doing it. There's many ways of doing things, right? There's many ways of allocating our energy and our attention. And that maybe it's time to learn some boundaries. Like sometimes because you're so willing to work hard and serve that, you might give your energy away to things that wouldn't be a priority. And because you're so hardworking, that's just how you're wired. And it has brought you so far. And though, if you wanted to have more ease and not yet another 5 days, and not just an extreme opposite of 5 days of break,
Lethargy,
yeah,
nothing.
right, then maybe if there was a way, and that's something for you to inquire within, honestly, between your heart and your heart.
Yeah. No, there's no
Oh,
question.
right. How you want to do this going forward so that
Differently.
you're right. And it's not
Differently.
good, you know, changing the apps is great. And
It's
though,
very great.
yeah,
It's
it's a
very
great
great.
first step.
Mhm.
And then to see how the inner apps could be turned off too.
Yeah, I need an update, a reboot. I need to delete some inner apps. Yeah, that's it. Delete the inner apps. There you go. There's this podcast title. Um, yeah, well, we're at time, but I appreciate the conversation, and there's still work to be done. And yeah, just the final takeaway there is, how is it going to be done going forward? Differently. I'm ready for version 2 or version 22, whatever number we're at, 45. But yeah, thank you for your time. Thank you all for being here. Beautiful souls. We had a few new faces who joined us live that hung on from the Bhakti course. Kevin, others, thank you so much. Tinika, Sadiv, Andrea, Rita, Sarah and George, Shweta, Dana, Menatoya, Metanoia, Sue, and Krishna Kumari. Thank you all for being here. Wishing you an amazing rest of the day. Namaste.
Namaste, friends.